Hey everyone, welcome back to AI Edge Daily. I'm your host, and today we're diving into one of the most controversial coding practices gaining momentum in 2026, vibe coding. Now, if you haven't heard of this term yet, don't worry. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why developers are embracing it, why it's incredibly effective for building your pipeline, and most importantly, why it becomes a complete mystery to you 6 months down the road. Let me start with the elephant in the room. Vibe coding is the practice of writing code based on intuition, flow state, and what feels right in the moment, rather than following strict documentation, design patterns, or traditional best practices. It's the coding equivalent of a jazz musician improvising on stage. And here's the thing that's got the developer community split right down the middle: it works. It works incredibly well, especially when you're trying to rapidly build out your pipeline and get features into production. Think about your last sprint. Remember that afternoon when you were in absolute flow? You knew your codebase inside and out. Your fingers were flying across the keyboard. You weren't stopping to reference documentation or debate architectural patterns. You were just building. And the code came out clean, functional, and elegant. That's vibe coding. That's the magic. The reason vibe coding is exploding in 2026 is directly tied to how artificial intelligence has transformed the development landscape. AI-assisted development tools have become so sophisticated that they can now predict what a developer wants to write before they even finish typing. They understand context. They understand intent. And when you're already in a good mental state, in a flow, AI can amplify that exponentially. You're not fighting your tools anymore. You're dancing with them. So developers are getting faster results than ever before. I'm talking about feature pipelines that used to take weeks now getting built in days. That's the power of vibe coding combined with modern AI dev environments. When you're vibing, your AI company pilot is vibing with you. The code generation is accurate. The suggestions are relevant. And you're shipping features at a pace that would have seemed impossible just 5 years ago. Here's where it gets interesting though, and this is the critical part that nobody's talking about enough. Vibe coding builds your pipeline beautifully in the present moment. But 6 months later, that code becomes an enigma. You'll open up a file you wrote while vibe coding, and you'll literally wonder what you were thinking. Because you weren't thinking in a structured way. You were feeling your way through the problem. And feelings don't leave good documentation. Imagine this scenario. It's November 2026. You built an incredible feature in May while in perfect flow. Your manager loves it. It's performing great in production. But now there's a bug. A subtle bug that only shows up under specific conditions. You need to jump into that code and fix it. You open the file. You see the code you wrote. And the question that hits you is simply, why did I do it this way? The variable names made sense when you were vibe coding. The logic flow felt right at the time. But now, divorced from that mental state, it's cryptic. There are no comments explaining the architectural decisions. There's no documentation about why you chose this approach over that approach. The code works, sure, but understanding the why. That's a nightmare. This is where vibe coding reveals its critical weakness. It's a short-term optimization strategy that creates long-term cognitive debt. Traditional coding practices exist for a reason. Comments, documentation, design patterns, code reviews, these aren't just bureaucratic overhead. They're communication mechanisms. They're ways of explaining to your future self and your teammates exactly what you were thinking and why. But here's the nuance that makes 2026 interesting. We're not actually arguing that you should never vibe code. We're arguing that you need to understand the trade-off. If you're building a prototype, a throwaway feature, or something that's genuinely temporary, vibe code all day long. Ship it fast. Test it. Iterate. That's where vibe coding wins. But if you're building something that's going to live in your codebase for months or years, that needs maintenance, that other developers will touch, or that future you will need to understand, vibe coding becomes reckless. The pipeline you build today becomes the technical debt you manage tomorrow. So what's the solution? How do you get the benefits of vibe coding without the 6-month regret? The answer is hybrid coding. You vibe code the logic, the algorithms, the creative problem solving. But you immediately follow up with documentation, comments, and clarity. You let yourself flow, but you also let yourself structure. You're not choosing between speed and maintainability.